Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac. And he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That means eventually his barren wife conceived. And as he continued his walk with God, God now began to request for that child. This is when it gets so terrible, because the question here is why? Have you ever asked God why before? How many of you? Did he answer? He didn't. And I need to tell you why. The reason is because he answered Job. Job asked the question why, and he answered Job. So everybody that asks God why, the answer is there. That the answer he gave Job is what he will give you. Job was one of the cardinals, because those days philosophy was held in premium, in high premium, because those were the days where the revelations of God was still in the cradle. And in the book of Job, the reason for suffering in actualizing destiny was not yet understood. Meanwhile, the pinnacle of knowledge was held by the cardinals, and there was one cardinal for each region. It will interest you to know that chronologically, Job was the first book that was written in the Bible. So Job was the cardinal of the East, the custodian of philosophy of the East. So when anything happens within his jurisdiction, they bring the issues to him, then he diagnoses what is wrong through his vast riches of philosophy, until it came to pass that it was now a cardinal that was afflicted. So the other experts from other places had to come, look upon his case, and try to decipher what was wrong. Now, they came with diverse forms of philosophies. Human merit, human experience. I don't have time to work on that. But Job held the perspective of self-righteousness. And Job felt that God was not fair, because he had walked with God faithfully in the light of his own understanding. And it came to pass that Job had a rare opportunity. God, in the book of Job, let me be sure of my quotation before I make it. The book of Job chapter 38, God now decided to come to Job's level. Since you have decided to accuse me, because Job's question was, why should these things happen to me? So God now said, all right, I'm going to come down to your level, and before we begin our discussion, I'm going to test your depth, whether you have the capacity to stand with me in court to argue a case. So that's what the scenario in the book of Job chapter 38 is about. Now, when God showed up and he came in a wild wind, in the book of Job chapter 38, he wanted to test the depth of Job. And the way God did it was that he pulled out a few questions to find out if Job had the capacity, the stature, to be able to stand against him in judgment. So the first question he asked Job, when he showed up, he said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? It means that if you hear Job speak, the little knowledge of God that you had, it will be lost just because you exposed yourself to that kind of lamentation that Job was making. And since Job was bent on contending with God and to show forth his righteousness, God now told him, get up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? That was the first question. If you are not as ancient as a personality that was present when God fastened the foundations of this civilization, because there are several secrets that God put in place that was playing out in the life of Job, which were as ancestral as the foundations of the earth. And if Job was not present there when God put that in motion, it means Job doesn't have the stature to stand hand to hand with God and question how he administers the affairs of the earth. So the reason why we do not live by God's explanations is because the depths of God are past finding out. But you see, it's a great honor that God gives us to be able to walk by faith through the witness of his Spirit. But if you are going to walk by faith, you must understand that the logic of your soul is going to contend with that which God intends to do in your life. And so, God, in order to remedy your situation, he makes substance available. And so the Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for. It goes beyond hope into reality. Because hope is searching, but reality is an established fact. So he moves you beyond your search and then makes you come into contact with reality so that your search ends because God comes to furnish a substance.